What's up, Angie K?
I'm so excited to finally be on this podcast. I love this podcast. I saw the one with Adam Mack. So good.
I love it.
So good.
Adam, oh my gosh.
What a character.
What a joy.
Truly.
Oh my gosh.
You haven't yet watched the Adam Mack episode.
He was my last one in December. He closed out 2024, and it was the perfect ending to a year because he is truly like a treasure, a
Brings
present.
energy, man.
He's like a present.
He is.
But we're sitting, and I'm still hacking. I always do my hacking. I thought I got it done, Angie, but
It's all right.
you know, it's my
It's all
thing.
right.
It's disgusting. Do you have any
It's not
disgusting habits?
It's real. Hey, this is the Get Real podcast, not the, pretend you don't cough podcast.
Hack, really.
Yeah.
Do you have any disgusting habits?
Well, that's a big question.
Or any habits? Like any like little character traits that you do that people might think is interesting.
I don't want to say them on here, actually.
Come on, please.
I have a bad habit. I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast. Of when I cut my nails
You
in
eat
the
'em.
bathroom. No, but I leave them in I do it carefully, but I leave them in a pile on the side of the sink, and then I throw them away because I don't like to bend down and do it over the trash can. And occasionally I forget to throw them away. And my girlfriend, my fiance, thank you.
I mean, get with it, Angie K.
I know, I'm getting used to it. My fiance just loathes it. There's very few things that there's so many things that could tick her off about me, like my habits, but like that one, she just thinks like fingernails are disgusting. So like she just gets so mad at me for it. But that would probably be my worst habit that I trigger her.
I gotta give you a little credit though, because you are trying to keep them tidy to throw them away.
I just forget. It's the same thing as I leave the cabinets open all the time. It's like my brain can't remember to close them. It's so awful. So awful.
So like, will you like leave the kitchen and all the cabinets are wide open?
Yeah. And that's another thing that kind of drives her crazy. I've gotten a little better about it, but I'm like, what is wrong with my brain that I can't like complete the task,
Yeah. I'm actually, Maddie, I'm going to give you these headphones. Maddie, if anyone needs content creator, social spark, Maddie's going to be listening to it. She's serving as producer today as well.
Love it.
I know.
And are you okay with the frame, me being this far away, or did you need me closer?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay.
Guys, in case you wanted to know what goes on, this is it. We're just here working it out as we go. Angie K.
I like it.
Okay. I don't really, I have to give you credit though for the nails. Like I feel like your intentions are really good to be clean.
Yes. Yeah. But
would you ever cut them over the toilet?
I guess that makes sense, wouldn't it? Because you
Then
could
they
just
go
flush
right
them.
into the toilet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know what? You're solving my problems right now.
Or you could do it outside.
In 30-degree weather?
Do you clip your nails all the time?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of thing in the LGBTQ community.
It
I would
is?
say. Yeah.
What do you mean? Have
Maybe
trimmed nails?
We want to keep this PG rated, but I will fully explain this to you off camera.
Oh, is it like having to do with some sexy things?
Most lesbians don't have long nails. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So get real. Caroline, how educating for all of you.
Really?
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're keeping them trimmed.
Yeah,
Nice.
just kind of.
Does Marissa keep hers trimmed?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, this is exciting. What other things can you share with me about the LG? What other like secret? Not secret.
Oh
but
man,
like
if
just
you had me and Adam, we could make a whole podcast.
What are some of the things that like people might not know? Okay, so you keep your nails trimmed. I can
guess,
only imagine
so we
why.
just got engaged. I will say something that's fun is that we've been dating for 10 years, if you can believe that. And nobody knows who to ask or who to pressure. Be like, so when are we getting married? So we never got pressured ever. So it's like we're always like, because nobody knows like, oh, whose job is it? If it's a guy, it's like, come on, man, ask the question. But for us, we just kind of got to relax because we already knew we were committed to each other. But having a wedding's expensive, so we wanted to save up for it. But it was so great because I was like, this is kind of a nice side of it because nobody knows who to pressure. Be like, what clock's ticking, man? Because we never
did y'all know who was supposed to be the one to ask?
No. So we knew we wanted to ask each other. It was actually really beautiful. So I took her down to Tulum. She has Mexican roots, so I kind of wanted to honor those a little bit. And we went to this epic place. My sister.
And you're from El Salvador, so
yeah,
you
I'm
have.
from El Salvador.
What? That's not Spanish. That would be.
Yeah, we speak Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up there, and I moved to the States when I was 11.
Okay.
But I always joke that my girlfriend had a more Hispanic and like country upbringing than I did. Even though I grew up in El Salvador and Georgia, she grew up in a place called Ramona, California, which is like inland San Diego. And I'm telling you, like they have like, I'm talking like, you're talking about like the kind of Mexicans that line dance at weddings kind of thing. Like it's a whole thing.
Like
and,
the most fun.
Yeah. I mean, I could not make like homemade tortillas if like my life depended. I can make pupusas, but I can't make tortillas. And she can like literally from scratch. I mean, her whole family, she has all of it, you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you grow up with like deep heritage in like your roots?
Yeah. No, I did. It's just like I kind of I spoke English and Spanish at the same time. I went to a school called Escuela Americana, which means like the American school. So half
In
the
El
classes were
Salvador?
in English and half were in Spanish. And like, yeah, I mean, so I kind of grew up with a pretty diverse world. Whereas we're in Ramona, California. I mean, it's very, very Hispanic over there. And I don't know if it is so much now, but when she was growing up, it was so. But I brought her to Mexico, and we got this upgrade. So she kind of had an idea that it was coming. And I had kind of planned this whole thing with mariachis and stuff that kind of foiled.
That kind of failed?
I know, it kind of foiled. Like
Oh.
it didn't work out.
Oh.
And then I found this awesome restaurant that had a cove. And I thought I could go around the cove and kind of privately ask her because she doesn't like a lot of eyes on her, you know? And then I realized the tide was at a point where you couldn't go. So the only thing was the cove. Everybody would just be watching. So I was kind of freaking out. And then the waiter, when she left to the bathroom, I was like, hey, man, I really need your help. Like, where can I ask her? And he was like, there's a private rooftop right over there. And sure enough, like there was nobody up there. And the sun was just hitting the waves and the breeze. And we love the ocean. Our whole relationship was by the ocean. So like, it was just perfect moment. And when I got down on a knee, which I just had knee surgery, so it's kind of hard for me to do. I know. And she like says, oh, and she like smiles at me, but she like runs away. And I swear it was
Wait,
like,
she runs away when you get down?
I know.
Hold
and it was
on.
like, I know.
Wait, we're whizzing past that, but
I knew
could
she
be...
wasn't going to say no, but I was like, well, this is awkward because if anyone's watching, I'm just down on a knee and she just runs away.
So
But
you
she was-
literally had the scenario being left on your knee.
That's right. And I couldn't get up easily because of my knee surgery. So then she like runs to get her fanny pack and she grabs a ring too. And we're just both like kneeling down crying.
Wait, so y'all both pulled out a ring at the same
it
time?
was pretty great. It was pretty great.
You were on one knee, a broken knee that was
A
healing.
broken knee, yes.
And she was like, oh my God, runs off, goes and grabs a ring. And then y'all both are on a knee giving each other a ring at the same time.
It was beautiful.
So y'all were so in sync.
That's right.
How did you feel that it was time? Like after 10 years, how did you finally feel like this is the time?
I feel like it was, I feel like you and I have been long enough in this industry, especially because your husband's in the industry too. So you've lived like twice as much experience. It's like we get to a point where the people that stick around, you either go bitter or you get really grateful. And
that is such a good point.
And I feel like I got to a point in my career where this is my 4th record I'm releasing. And I'm like, there's always this fear, especially like in your early 20s or teens. You're just like, this is my one moment. If this doesn't work, nothing, whatever.
Over.
And at this point, I've been the brokest of the broke. And I've had these great shows that have put me in a good place. And I've been everywhere in between. And I'm like, well, if something happens, I'll just figure it out.
You know you can.
Yeah. And it was this moment of like, yeah, I kind of stressed about figuring out the money for the wedding, but also like, I really want to marry this woman, and I want to call her my wife, and it feels good to even think about that. So it was just this moment where I was like, it just feels good. Let's do it. We're in such a steady, solid place. It just felt right.
That is so true. You either get like bitter or grateful, and you look around and you're like, man, the people that you've really like ridden the waves with and like the storm, made it through the storms with.
The ones that stick around, that's how you know your family, you know?
Well, because it's easy. Like you started off like a big bang on The Voice, you know? So you kind of start with like a big push into the music industry, people, a lot of eyes on you. I mean, I'm sure you had been doing stuff before then, but that was kind of early on in your career, right?
Yeah, so I got The Voice, but I was still touring full-time before that. So I've been touring full-time for almost like 12 years now, I want to say. And so then on The Voice, I immediately came off the show and I would try to book a slightly bigger venue in the places that I've been to already. So I kept touring. And then I actually got discovered really by Jake Owen and Keith Gale. Keith Gale is his manager.
No way.
And they're the reason we moved to
Maybe it's through
Nashville.
Jake Owen.
You what?
Maybe it's through Jake that we know each other.
That could be it.
Because we were sitting here trying to figure out how we've known each other. I've known Jake for like 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
No, he's the reason we moved to Nashville. So I probably just saw you around one of the parties or something.
Why is he the reason you moved to Nashville?
Because Keith wanted to sign me to his management company at the time.
And Keith, who is it, Keith?
Keith Gale. So they started a company called Good Company. Good. It's from the song Good Company Entertainment.
Okay.
And he was like, I'd love to help manage you and get you over here. And Jake was so complimentary. He's like, I really think you have something. I think you need to be in Nashville. And I was living in San Diego with Marissa at the time. So I moved first just to test it out for I think 8 months. And then she convinced her to move too. And so.
How did you meet Jake? How did you get discovered by Jake and Keith?
I actually don't know who connected us. I can't remember. Oh, I do. Matt Petty who used to work on the Sony team. So Keith used to work for RCA, and Matt worked with everybody from like Kenny Chesney and stuff. And he's such a fun, he is a character, man. Like now he's like, he like kind of pulled back from the music industry. He has his chickens in his backyard, and he is just like the hippiest hippie I've ever met. And I love him for it. But he was the one that shot my music to Keith. Keith saw it. He, of course, had to get Jake to approve. And that's the reason I moved. And they hooked me up with a lot of really big people like Jesse Frazier, Nicole Gallion and Hillary Lindsay wrote that song that I put out, Real Talk, which got on Sirius XM. The Highway is a highway find. Keith, that's actually a full circle moment because I got on that highway find, which was that was kind of my big smash into Nashville. And then in 2020, Keith had to drop me because it was just like so chaotic.
Oh,
you
God,
know? Yeah. And he was so kind about it, and we still remain really, really good friends. And I kind of did my own thing for a little bit, and then J.R. Schumann, who's the reason, who's really good.
He was in charge
really
of Sirius.
Good friends with Keith.
He ran. Does he still run Sirius, or he did run Sirius?
No, he left Sirius to start a management, and so I ended up now he's my manager.
No
so
way.
It really works out great because then I get to see Keith around, and
I love J.R.
it just
Schumann.
worked out really well. Yeah, he's the best. He really is.
Gosh.
He's such a good guy.
So he's your manager now.
He is. Yeah.
I've
never gotten to actually tell that whole story. So it's kind of nice.
I'm so glad
here.
You shared it.
Only here.
Well, thank you for dropping that. It's so funny, the Nashville, how it all just connects and intertwines. So that was your first big introduction to Nashville was on the Highway XM radio.
Yeah, I think that really changed my life. So I told Keith, I was like, my number one I'd always wanted to open for is Melissa Etheridge. Love her, like adore her. And so me and Keith just like sends the email because he knows her manager. And it was before, like, I think, like, the agencies had gotten her or something, and they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And so I got to open for her at the Ryman.
No,
JR happened to be in the concert, and I remember Melissa puts her hands on my shoulders and gave me the best. She was so sweet. You never get to meet the people you open for half the time. And she, like, made it a point to meet me, told me I did a good job, and then says after my show, like, please come to my dressing room. So I come over there. I'm like,
she asked you back to her dressing room?
That's what I'm saying. So she, like, puts her hands on my shoulder, and she said, never care about the people in the suits more than the people in the seats. That was her advice to me. And so right after she said that,
I go a tear to your eye.
So immediately I go to like the merch table, and I'm like, I'm gonna meet every person here. And I'm like energized for it. And JR's there, and he's like, hey, I just wanted to say you did a great job, and I want to put you on the radio. I'm like, thanks, man, awesome. I got to get to my merch table. So I just kind of blew him off because I was like, I got to get to my fans. Melissa Etheridge told me to treat them right.
And you're like, and you're in a suit, and you're not one of the.
Yeah, you know, JR is. Oh, sorry, you know, JR is literally always in that polo, like, so he always looks like, you know.
She's like, listen, I can't pay attention to you. You're in a suit. I got to get to my fans.
I got to get to my people.
But he's like, no, I'm going to change your life. I'm going to put you on Sirius XM.
Luckily, that didn't turn him off. So he like.
Maybe made him inspired by your commitment to your fans.
I hope so, because it could have gone another way. It's not like most executives don't have a little bit of an ego. So luckily, JR didn't have one that night. And I sold it like a crazy amount of merch that night, and that was a night that really changed my life. Yeah, because that's the reason why Real Talk got on Sirius on the Highway. First song really that had Spanish on it that went on Sirius XM.
I love that you put Spanish in your songs. You do that a lot.
Yeah, just when it feels right. Laredo was probably the most like. One of my favorite kind of breakout songs of combining them because it was inspired by the story of my great grandparents. They're
from Laredo?
No, so my mom was born in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and her mom's mom, so her grandparents were kind of rodeo. He went everything from mining to moving cows in Colorado, moving them all the way down, and then there was a rodeo in Laredo that they had this big story that we were always telling our family. So we kind of like took pieces of those stories that I feel like now have probably gotten so exaggerated because they seem like these mythical characters in my life now. So I kind of like took all those stories and like put them all into this song that now every time I play it, it just feels like this like place I get to go.
It's like its own little world.
Yeah, exactly. That I feel like I grew up feeling like when I went to visit my grandmother when we were living in El Salvador, that desert always felt so like American to me because my dad loved Westerns. So like when we finally announced we're moving to the States, I thought that's what all of the US really kind of looked like. And so when we moved to like a suburb outside of Atlanta, I was like, what is this? Like
Your first introduction into the States was a suburb outside of Atlanta.
Well, that's when we moved. But I thought, because I'd been to the desert, out there forever, I thought that most of the U.S. looked like that, So
were you looking forward to living in the desert, or were you glad that you were in the suburbs?
I still really love the desert, that West Texas all the way through.
I love West Texas.
New Mexico, Arizona. I love that a lot. Yeah.
I just, and I love the heat. Me too. I love that it's so hot.
Right now, we really love the heat because it is too.
This is the seasonal depression era. I feel like
it's a thing. It's real.
Until
I had to explain that to my girlfriend who's from San Diego.
Yeah. Oh, it hits California people hard.
She was like, "Why don't I feel my biggest thing?" And I wonder if any of you guys from California did deal with this. Like, she came here and I kept having it'd be like so cold and we'd have the heat on, or it'd be super hot and I'd have the AC on, and she always likes to open the windows, and I'd be like, "Babe, you can't do that here. Like, it's no." She was like, "So you just keep the windows closed all the time?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's what we do here." And she just can't understand it.
What was it like growing up in El Salvador, and why did y'all move here?
It's kind of tricky to talk about because I always worry people will just take apart, because people always say, like, when I'm going down there, they're like, "Oh, that must be so dangerous." And it's like, yes, true, there are problems, but like, it is the most beautiful country in the world. Like, it's so small, but it packs so much. And so, I mean, the most beautiful beaches you've ever seen, volcanoes, mountains, lake. I mean, it's the kind of stunning that just makes your heart feel lighter,
Oh, yeah.
And I grew up in that, like, untouched earth was what I grew up in. And so,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I think, for me, I like talking about how beautiful it was. But yeah, there was a lot of problems. And, I mean, I can remember growing up hearing like the whistle and then hearing kind of like a bomb fall, and that went not far, because we lived in San Salvador, but we would on the weekends go to the water. So we lived kind of in the city.
Was it just like fights within the country?
Yeah, there was a lot of civil strife. Like my dad, which I probably wouldn't have been able to talk about this even like 8 years ago. My dad was attempted kidnapping, and he had to jump out of a car to get away. His grandfather, the reason we were born in El Salvador was my parents met at University of New Mexico, and my grandfather on my dad's side got kidnapped. And so my mom...
Just random? Or for a reason?
The way that gangs make money is they kidnap people that they think have money, and then they ask for ransoms. And so that was pretty common. And my dad's last name is associated with a very wealthy group of people. Even though we necessarily didn't have all of that, we were well off, but like... Yeah, so my mom, after marrying my dad, after knowing him for like 4 months, they lived together and they built a life together, but didn't have any kids. All of a sudden, my mom had to get into El Salvador just with money strapped to her body, not because it wasn't legal to bring it in, but if they knew you had it, they knew that they'd get kidnapped too. So like,
wow,
they had to bring the money for the ransom in cash, and yeah, it was
no
a scary
way.
time. Yeah, and a lot of this I only picked up in pieces because my parents don't talk about a lot of this stuff, but they finally got my grandfather back, and he died shortly afterwards from cancer. So there was just a lot of reality that my parents dealt with that they sheltered us from. But I mean, there were things like in my school that I went to, I went on a field trip, and I remember all of a sudden we all had to lay down in the middle of the bus, like in between the seats, because somebody had stopped the bus with AK-47s. And I just remember being so annoyed by my teacher on top of me, because I'm like, it's so heavy, it's so annoying, and not being scared. So it's so interesting because I moved really before I kind of had that part of my brain developed that knew when to be scared, And
interesting.
So I was very sheltered, I think, from a lot of that. So when presented with the opportunity to move, which, my dad lost a lot in that move of things he could have had, and he started over basically in the United States. And
wow, and they probably did that for you.
Oh,
do you have a sibling?
I have 4 sisters.
So they did that for all the kids.
Yeah, but I hate to say that we like escaped in that way, because it's a beautiful country. But yeah, there's things that I don't take for granted here. Like I remember the first day my mom left the front door unlocked, and she let me bike to this pool by myself. Like I remember those moments as massive things, because in my house in El Salvador we had massive metal doors on everything, bars on the windows. We had a driver we had bulletproof car windows everywhere we went. Like I could tell so many stories that would sound crazy, but to me don't feel traumatic because I didn't necessarily process them the way that I could have. Yeah. that makes sense. So like to me, I see my parents as really having gone through a lot and sacrificed a lot for us, but I didn't necessarily see that the way that I do now when I was younger.
What a big decision, and like moving 5 girls.
Yeah.
How did they end up outside of Atlanta?
I think the Hope Scholarship was a really big thing in Georgia, which is like, it means as long as you keep a 3.0, you got your tuition covered in an in-state college. And there's a couple other states that do that, but like my parents have always been all about education. So of course, when I called them 2 years into Georgia Tech and said, hey, I'm quitting school and I'm going to go work on a cruise ship, they were just thrilled. Super thrilled.
Because I mean, not that they don't want you to follow your dreams, but they've just gone through quite a bit to get you over here. So they're probably come on, Angie.
Yeah.
What did they say? Were they ultimately supportive?
The thing is my mom is like, she's stubborn and a little spicy. So like I grew up around that as a role model to be like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, you know? And so like, although I was nervous to tell them, they knew they couldn't stop me. And they kind of have a very solid family first, like family is the most important thing. So I knew they weren't going to reject me. And so, yeah, they were like, okay, that's what you're going to do. And so, yeah, I worked on cruise ships. I went from working on I worked at a Mustang parts salvage yard, basically.
Okay.
And I went from that to making, I think it was like $700 a week. And somebody would make my bed every day.
On the cruise ship?
Yeah, all the food is done. I'm in a Caribbean island every
Were you
other
like,
day.
this is kind of it? Like, I kind of like
And
landed on the gold mine?
21.
Was it heaven?
I'm telling you, it was like the greatest thing I've ever done. Like,
How many years
so
were
much
you
fun.
on the cruise ship?
I have to really think about it. So like I started at Georgia Tech in 2009. So I think in 2012 is when I said I'm going to kind of come off, and that's when I had the cruise ship offer in the distance, and then I think 2013 is when I officially finally got on the ship. I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it a Disney cruise ship?
No. It was Carnival.
What did
Carnival
you
Cruise
do?
Lines.
Like, what was your job?
I would play for 4 hours.
Sing?
Yeah. Just
What kind of
acoustic
songs?
soloist. Well, I told them I knew 300. I knew like 50. So I thought I'd get fired if I didn't know a request, because everybody else was like Berkeley grads. I don't know why they hired me. I found out later, but I'll tell you that story in a second. But I would play for 4 hours a day, and I went from knowing 50 songs to about 2,100, and I would just use almost all my money on internet to get on and learn the songs. Yeah, so that's why a lot of times people will say, I love your version of this, and I'm like, I don't have a version of it. That's just the best I could do from hearing it once. Yeah.
You were just trying to keep it coming.
Yeah, so I did that, and I'm so grateful for it, because some of my favorite followers and fans that have become family are from the ship still. Like, I mean, if I do a show in Nashville, a solid 20% are people that fly in from all over the United States.
Stop.
Yeah, it's kind of their thing. They all meet up on my Nashville shows. Yeah. So.
Okay, so you said you were going to tell me something later. You thought you were going to get fired?
So, well, no, the how I got that job, I
yeah.
found out later, because like I said, everyone else is a Berkeley grad on the ship. And I'm like, I don't even know number charts at this point. I didn't even play with a pick when I got that job. I mean, I only had a wardrobe exclusively from Walmart clearance aisle. Like
clearance aisle.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I had this, and my girlfriend fell in love with me in the first. She was just cruising.
She was just on the cruise?
She was like, this girl's great. I love this girl. And I had like electric blue lace tennis shoes. You know, the clearance kind of tennis shoes, you know what I'm saying? Nothing wrong with that, but not the best thing to wear on stage, and like probably a free t-shirt I got or something. And she liked me then. That's one of the reasons I love her. But
who was she cruising with?
Just a bunch of her friends. And we just knew each other. We just met each other on that cruise, and we didn't start dating until 2 years after.
So would you meet people and then just like hang out? Like you do your job and then you could just like hang out and enjoy the cruise?
And this is a big thing that I'm so grateful for, because there are people that are 10 times more talented than me that have such a much harder time climbing, this industry, because they're not people person.
Oh yeah.
And I just love meeting people and talking to them. So I would literally finish my set, I'd order myself a beer, and I'd go I'd kind of walk by a table and be like, hey, so where are y'all from? And kind of get a vibe of whether or not they like wanted. And a lot of times they're like wanting to hear like, what do you do? And then I learn about what their favorite songs are, and then I play them the next day. And yeah, that's how I got to know everybody. But Marissa, my girlfriend, was my fiance, was definitely the best part of that experience.
So why did you say you wouldn't have gotten hired? Why you got hired?
I got hired. I found out later. This Roger Butterly was in charge of all the musicians on Chrono. He just got hired, and he noticed that there were no female soloists. And
everybody was a dude.
Yeah, and I a while back had submitted my stuff for cruise ships, and they were like, I was the only video they could find, I guess, and that's how I got hired, like right off the bat, without really any kind of big interview process or anything. They just saw my video, like, hey, can you be on a cruise ship on this date? And
is that kind of where you're like, I guess I need to quit college? I got a cruise coming up, kind of the catalyst?
Yeah, that was absolutely the catalyst, because that's when I was like, well, I know I can do this full time. So even if it takes a while for me to officially get on the ship, I know that I'll be able to do it full time. So I won't, because the only thing my parents could do is say, we're not going to help you if you're in a tricky spot, which they wouldn't do, but they wouldn't necessarily like, I need money for a record. That's how I made the money for my first record and stuff. So to me, I was like, okay, now I know this is possible. And that's when I started kind of doing the bar shows for a while, and before I get on the ship. But the guy that hired me on that, Roger, came on the ship, but we ended up becoming fast friends because he's such a there's few people I've met as musical as he is. He ends up getting hired by Disney, and he calls me one day, and I'm doing my little bar tours, and he's like, hey, can you come and sing on this demo for me? And I was like, yeah, of course, Roger, anything for you. So I go over there and I sing on this demo, and I'm like, this song sounds like a big song at the parks. I'd done a couple things for the parks before then that were just like quick things, like When You Wish Upon a Star remake and stuff. But these are just played in the parks, so like quick and easy thing. So I thought it was that. Turned out, he calls me later and he's like, hey, what would you say if I told you that that you're going to be the voice along with Jordan Fisher for the fireworks show, like that's replacing
the big
Wishes.
Fireworks show at Disney?
So every day the fireworks show plays at Walt Disney World. That's my voice
still?
In the background of it. Yeah. I know.
How cool is that?
It went away for like a year and people were so mad they brought it back. So that's like even cooler, but yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and when I go to Disney, they're so nice to me. They like treat me to like, they give me like the VIP stuff.
The tour?
Like, yeah, so I don't have to stand in lines or anything.
Is that where you were like on a safari ride and nobody was there?
It was crazy.
So you get like Disney to yourself?
Yeah, which like I'm a huge Disney fan, but no one's a bigger Disney fan than my fiance. So like it really gave me some points, man. It really did. Like she might, like I feel like it gave me an extra reason for her never to break up with me. Like,
can you go to Disney all the time? Like, do you have like
I try to go at least like once a year.
Do you always get the VIP treatment when you go?
I never ask for it. So I'm like, sometimes I almost always just ask for the tickets because I'm happy with just the tickets too. But the last time they had a really high profile actor had canceled, and that was where we got his security. They have a security guard when they have the VIP tour guide, and then they have a security guard for really high profile people. Not me, but the guy, they're canceled, and the security guard wanted to still work. So they're like, well, we'll just go with Angie. So because everybody saw him, they just, all of the carts were completely clear for us for everything. So like when we did like the Star Wars thing, it was just us.
Star
Wars,
Wars,
opened the door, everything. It was just all four of us. Like,
stop it.
It was the best. I don't think we'll ever get that again, but like that was
what a moment in time. Because Disney, we just went for my daughter's 5th birthday, and I just was like, this is truly the greatest place in the world. I get why they say it's the happiest place on earth, because you are like shot into an alternate reality that is just absolute bliss and fun and joy.
Yeah, like my sister, I think it's like we all finally getting that quality time that even just the standing in line, honestly, it's part of it. Like it's part of just, what are you going to talk about? You're standing around and talking. It's true quality time. And I think that's what people that don't really understand Disney adults, they don't get that it's like, that's what it is. And then when your kids now, when they go, they have all those memories they get to savor for their kids. And it becomes this beautiful tradition that you get to pass on.
It's kind of incredible that we have Disney, honestly.
It's just us gushing about Disney.
I mean, I love Disney. Okay, so let's rewind back to the beginning of this podcast when y'all are joint proposing, and Marissa and you propose, and then after that, like, okay, no, y'all met before you were on The Voice. I'm trying to piece together the timeline. Yeah. So y'all were on the cruise and you met, and then you moved to California.
Oh, this is a good part, actually. So when I got... kind of been talking for a minute, and then when I got to audition for The Voice,
with Marissa? Like when y'all met, y'all were like, "Oh, I love you. It's going to be a thing."
We tell different stories.
Okay,
it's a little bit of a contention, but she says that she was interested when she first met me, but like,
did you always know you were a lesbian?
I think if I was born in like the 1800s, I could make it work. But
make some butter and have some babies.
But knowing that women were a possibility, there's no going back.
Okay.
That's how I would describe my sexuality.
Okay.
Marissa's probably more bi, but
okay.
Yeah, I think what was I talking about?
The story, how y'all met.
Yeah. So she comes up
Or
to
in
me
love.
and asked me for a request. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know that song. It was Ellie Goulding's song. And she was like, I heard you playing it upstairs. And Marissa, if you know her, she can be kind of stubborn. And I was like, nope, I actually don't know that song. She was like, I heard you playing it. And I was like, look, lady, I don't know this song. But we were kind of joking about it. And to this day, she swears I sang that song. Because later on, she saw a YouTube video of me singing a Ellie Goulding song. And I was like, there's no way I could have played it and have the chart for it. But she still swears I was messing with her. But
So was it love at first sight for you and for her? Or was it a little minute? Did y'all start dating on the cruise ship? Or was it like you got each other's numbers and kept in touch?
I think there was definitely a spark when we first met. But it wasn't really until we started kind of talking that we started really getting to know each other. And then when I auditioned for The Voice back when they sequestered people for like a year. They were flying us there and
The
back. The
Voice used to like take a whole freaking year.
It was insane. And they would keep you from doing gigs and stuff. It was, and I get it. I totally understand why, but it was a very difficult audition process for especially people with kids or who had jobs like teachers or
who
police
could do
officers.
that for a year.
People that want it that bad.
Yeah.
I was lucky that I was I was pretty flexible. So they'd fly me to this hotel and they had to stay in Burbank. And right down the road was the coaster that goes along the 101 and goes down the coast of California. So I would sneak out, and because they would tell us what our schedule was the day before, and there'd be things for us to do. And sometimes we'd have the day off, and I would sneak out, take the coaster, and go see her in Encinitas in San Diego, and that's how we really started dating and getting to know each other. I still
So
have
The
the
Voice
picture.
brought y'all together.
Yeah, truly. And I think the coolest part about, I don't know, I can't speak for other seasons, but I feel like my season really felt like a family, and they all could have ratted me out, and
because they knew you were doing this.
Nobody did, because if they found out that I'd left the
You'd
hotel,
be kicked off
easily. Yeah,
but they didn't.
they covered for me. Yeah,
No way.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm just another person competing for the same thing that they want. You know,
And just one less person to have to compete against. I mean, why wouldn't they want to kick you out?
right? And it was just, we just liked each other. I mean, we would stay up late and we would sing and annoy other people at the hotel, and like we just all harmonize. It feels like one of the truly most pivotal points in my life. Truly is not the time on the show, but truly the time with all of us experiencing something so intense together and choosing to enjoy it instead of competing.
That is such a great point, because choosing to enjoy it instead of competing,
Isn't that
because
the secret to life right there.
that is the secret to life right there, because that is so true, because everything can be a competition if you want it to be, especially now that your whole life can be a competition, starting with a kid. Like my daughter's 5 and she's still like, she's already starting to like want to be great at stuff and like wonder if she's as good as other people at stuff, and like, but it's like, I always tell her, it's not a competition. You always got to do the best you can. But it's like, especially when you get older and money matters, career matters, it's not like everyone has to like figure their life out. You're not doing this for fun per se. Obviously it's your dream and passion, but there's a lot on the line.
Yeah.
And to make it enjoyable.
It's everything. Yeah. And I think anyone that's been in the industry a long time has probably figured that out.
You have to.
Otherwise, you're miserable.
You're miserable.
Because, like, there's always another carrot. And I think something that, like, hit me. Actually, I feel like it's hit me a couple times. I feel like really hit me hard the last couple months is realizing, like, at no point do you feel like you have it made, like there's really no point that you actually really feel that way. Like I'm looking at artists that I've known and watched forever, and now that I've gotten to know a lot of them, I realize like, wow, they're just as stressed out if people are gonna like the single. It's just the odds are different. It's like for them, if you're signed to a label, if you have less than 20 million streams, it is a disaster. Whereas for me, 1 million streams, I'm like, what a great single, and it's just it's the same stakes, or the stakes are different, but it's the same stress, And I think when you realize that, you're like, well, then the only point is to actually enjoy where I am, and that's the whole game of it. That's the
secret to life in general.
Yeah.
Man, that's so true, especially being on The Voice, because here's like the top of the top people in the United States. Like, they've gathered the greatest singers at that time in the United States.
Yeah.
So everybody has their own special gift, and everybody has their own special like flavor. And you could easily compare yourself, but at the same time, it's like, how can you compare people who are also uniquely different?
Yeah.
And maybe one person can belt and like hit the notes and the stars, but another person has just a really deep, smooth, like R&B voice, but it's like you can't even compare because everyone is so special. And I think that that's leaning into the fact that this is your gift, that you're great, and like you there's no point to compare.
It's the belief, right? So like, that's the thing I struggle with. If people always say like, oh, the long drives must be so hard and the blood, sweat, and tears. Blood, sweat, and tears are the easiest part. It's believing that that's going to lead to something, because hard work only really becomes hard when you all of a sudden don't trust the outcome. But if you trust the outcome, someone said you're going to be a multi-millionaire, super famous person if you just keep it up.
And this is a fact.
That
I can promise you.
Easy as hell to do, like an 8-hour drive. Easy. Lose some
someone
sleep for a couple
promised
nights. Easy. If I knew that the rest of my life I would never have to worry about money.
No problem.
Yeah, but it's just, it's the belief from the lowest. Yeah. And I'll say a good lesson for me was Allison Porter was the one who won my season. When I got off the show, I think when you're younger, you forget to be there for people when it's hard because you think they just want to be alone. And that goes for like hospital stays, everything. And as you get older, you realize, no, it's really important to show up during those moments. And I had a lot of friends and on that show. And when I came off, nobody really texted me. And it's hard because you go to another hotel. You don't really get a point to talk to everybody.
Oh, so you have this big experience, and then when it's over, you're just shuttled away from all your best friends?
Yeah, and Allison Porter, she should have been getting ready for her time up on the stage. And I remember she texted me a really nice text. And I'm like, that moment kind of was this really teachable moment for me of being like, next time, like pay attention. Like pay attention to the people around you, because that is so much more life-giving. To this day, she comments on my stuff all the time. I comment on hers. And I feel like that relationship, that moment made The Voice feel more of a beautiful memory to me. Because if nobody had texted me or nobody had done anything, I would have felt like maybe it wasn't real. And just that one observation, that one moment she took to not worry about herself and to worry about someone else, it like really made an impact on me, and it made me a better person because I know how much that's valued outside of myself. If that makes sense. So yeah.
God, isn't life so complicated and beautiful? And it's like you can't miss it, because like that is such a tiny little life that you could easily miss that life lesson, like, but you caught it, you paid attention, you realized how that made you feel. She realized the importance of it. Like y'all had that moment, and like it's such like it could have been just such a nothing moment. Yep. A passing moment, but because of those actions, her taking the time for her to have that empathy and to put herself in your shoes, because she easily could have been you, and when y'all get to the finals, anybody could have won, Well,
I got off actually pretty early.
Weren't you like 8 or something?
No, I got like on 3 episodes, I think.
Well, I mean, 3 episodes. That's
I loved it. I know, I loved
pretty
it,
great. So how many people were like? Is it like how many people were in the cast? That you were hanging out with?
I think I was in like the top 20. I want to say. And then it like went down to top 10 pretty fast. Okay. And I didn't come close. I didn't get the live shows, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But
yeah, but like you could easily miss that moment. And those are the moments that like when we are old and gray and, about to walk over Rainbow Bridge or whatever, I feel like we're going to look back and be like, this is all these little collections of moments. That is what life is.
No, I remember I did this big show with my band recently, and we had just talked about peanut butter sandwiches at rehearsal. And Megan Jane, the drummer.
Like
she's
for
my
real
drummer.
Peanut butter sandwiches?
Yeah, we were just talking about how much we love peanut butter sandwiches.
With no jelly?
We do this really fancy gig, and we're all just really hungry. And my drummer pulls out peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for everybody. And we're all eating like these peanut butter and jelly sandwiches like little kids, like waiting to go on this big stage. And it was I'm telling you, it's those little moments that you don't realize matter. And that's what really makes the lightness that you need to be present and be like, how silly is it what we do for a living? Like playing instruments, gyrating on stage. It's ridiculous. And people just like dancing and enjoying it. Like humans, we're crazy. And like when you take things too seriously, you don't get a chance to look around and not just appreciate what you got, but what you're giving people, when you can give people. But that's always, I'm a work in progress in that regard.
I love this, Angie, because I feel like you are just hitting the nail on the head with like what life is and like the importance of life, because and I can tell like you are such a community driven person, like being in community with people that you love, that you value, and that you can have connection with really matters to you. And that really is the secret to life, because starting with like your family being close family and like your parents saying like family first, no matter what, you knew you had the safety to go pursue your dreams because you have this community that will love you and support you. And then like getting involved with a cruise ship and like getting to know people on the cruise ship and make that an experience. Because you could have isolated on the cruise ship. You could have done your job and you could have totally isolated. You didn't, like you being out there by yourself, like you could have just kind of kept to yourself, or you could have made it a community experience and got to know people and shared stories and, you know, shared an adventure together. Same thing with The Voice. You could have totally isolated and like made it about like just your experience and your fears and what could go wrong and how you got to win and, you know, how you got to stay like locked up and focus on the prize and not actually the experience of the people that you're doing it with. And I can just see you have a theme that you always find the community and you really lean into that. And that's beautiful.
Thanks for saying that. I feel like I definitely, like, I'm like a work in progress. Like, I was not like this when I was 21. I can tell you that. I was a lot more frantic. I had a chip on my shoulder that I still have to kind of.
Why do you have a chip on your shoulder?
Just feel, you know, you get this feeling like I'm going to work hard and work harder than everybody, and I'm going to just be great, and I'm going to work so hard, and then I'm going to deserve it, you know? And it's like, you just roll your eyes at that when you've been doing something in a difficult place for a long time, because it's like, no one deserves to be famous. Like, 0 people deserve, like, you know, that gift, you know?
But fame can also be the worst thing that could ever happen to you.
It can.
Maybe you're getting the gift by not having like the extreme fame right now because you've had these beautiful adventures and community.
Yeah. And you know, it's just like, it's like I said, it's like constantly trying to rebalance yourself.
So the chip on your shoulder is like, I've worked so hard for so long. Like, why has this not paid off like I think it should?
Yeah. Or when you start comparison's the theft of joy is one of my favorite quotes, because it's like you start comparing yourself to people that you maybe think aren't working as hard and less talented.
Aren't as good.
And the worst part of that poison of thinking working hard is the only way you get somewhere is you can't be happy for somebody who did something that you think had it easier than you. And I promise you, there's people that look at my stuff and think I had it real super easy, you know? And it's like, maybe I did compared to a lot of people. But luckily I live inside the borders of the United States. Not only that, I live in 3 of the big, like one of 3 massive cities for entertainment in the world, and the city for country music. So it's like the fact that I could literally just drive here in 3 hours when I turned 16 is pretty insane. Like that was a gift. If I hadn't gotten that, if I had stayed in El Salvador, you know, or lived in another country or in Europe or something, people even knowing my name becomes 10,000 times more of a challenge. So like, there's a lot to be grateful for. But
how cool that your life is so wide open, though. I mean, like, you started in El Salvador, and I know, like, you moved for certain reasons, but it's like you started in El Salvador. Your life is like, not everyone has such a wide life, you know. Not everyone has such a vast life where they experience so much and see so much and like learn so much. Some people are just born into a little spot with a little bubble, a little mindset, a little thought of the world. You have such a big thought of the world, like, you know, and like the options were, you realize anything could be an option, because like leaving a country, starting over, then like leaving college, going on a cruise ship, going on The Voice, like you said, you can move to Europe, like the world just feels like endless possibilities for you.
Yeah, you know, I started something called, it's still in the baby phase, but it's called the Country Latin Association. And my dream with it is to get more people from outside the United States showcasing in Nashville. And I think that one of my favorite things to say is like, country music is not for everyone, but country people are everywhere. Like, so if you look at like, there's more rural communities in Brazil, in El Salvador, in Mexico than there are in the cities, really. And all those people have a lot of the same values. I mean, I think these boots were made in Mexico, you know, like most of that cowboy world is still working really hard in Puerto Rico, and they're raising their cattle and raising their crops. And it's the values of what we talk about connect more than pop music does in a lot of these places. But we know reggaeton is one of the biggest brands of music to cross over into pop. So we think, oh, we just need to combine country with reggaeton. And it's like, no, I mean, I think that could do well, but it's like, I wish there was an easier way to like truly talk about the nuances of these different cultures, like Mexican versus El Salvador and stuff. So that's why we've been doing that, kind of sharing those stories at the Country Latin Association, interviewing country artists, hearing about what it means to be a Cuban immigrant's son versus being someone from Puerto Rico or someone from Mexico, you know. And it's wildly different stories and different values and different worlds that they grew up in, you know.
It's so fascinating. Life just blows my mind. There's so many ways to have a life. So when you came to Nashville, you were with Marissa.
Yeah.
You were openly lesbian. Was
Yes.
was it a hard journey to be openly lesbian, or has it been easy as a country artist? Was your family cool with it? Was country music embracing? Because I feel like to me, I mean, as an outsider, it feels like you got it going on, and it is your stuff's so awesome. And I feel like has it? Well, I'm not even gonna put what I feel like. What has it been like for you?
No. I think it's like I don't. Yeah. So I think first I want to say I only speak to my own experience because like my skin color is light. I can blend in a lot of different scenarios. When I speak Spanish, I sound like I'm from somewhere else. When I speak English, I sound like I'm American, you know? So I will say that's important to know because if I looked very different, I might have had a very different experience. So I say that to qualify, like, this is just my experience. I'm not speaking for everybody. But yeah, I think I grew up in a family where, although it wasn't super stoked about it at the beginning, I knew weren't going to leave me. Other people don't have that luxury. And without saying names, like a good example is I remember walking with somebody downtown, and it was somebody who's very level-headed, very balanced, also out. And this man was like yelling with, you know, like the God signs and stuff. And we walked by and they said something about being an abomination if you're gay and all this stuff. And I watched this very sane, wonderful person just turn around and just flip out and like yell at them. And like, I'm like, whoa, like I had to even kind of like pull them back. Like it's fine. Like they can't do anything to you. Like, let it go. It's okay. Me not having experienced trauma coming out, they came from a very intense background where they lost the respect of their family when they came out. So when they hear that, they see people they love yelling at them, which, yeah, I don't know. I'm getting kind of emotional, but it's like, that's trauma response.
So painful.
And that's what I try to explain to people about what pride is and why it matters to have diversity and representation. It's because it's not because it's for you. Like, you can just not choose to watch that. But like, that's why I had been asked to change the pronouns of my songs to you instead of she. I've been asked to do that by people that are in the community older than me, because they're like, if you want to succeed, that might be what you have to do. And you can still be open with your wife and that can still reach people.
You're like, maybe that's not true.
And I'm going to tell you, Caroline, I know people that have made that decision that are big, that people don't know are out or can't be out. And I didn't want to live that way. And luckily, because I came from outside the industry, instead of like starting in Nashville, I built my fan base outside of Nashville and then moved to Nashville. I felt comfortable to do that. Also, I had a really beautiful moment where I wanted to get this song I wrote for Marissa called Leave California to move to Nashville. I wanted to get it on CMT. And so I like just emailed Leslie Fram because I'm like, I was stupid back then. I was like, of course that's what you do. So I emailed Leslie Fram and I was like, I'd like to get this video.
She's the head of CMT. Well, was the head of CMT.
And she writes me back and she says, okay, come to my office, basically. And I'm like, okay, cool. And in my mind, I don't even know this is a big deal. So I go to like the head of CMT's office and I give him my thumb drive and I show her the video, and she watches it twice, and she said, and it talks about my girlfriend moving to Nashville. So it's like very open. And she's like, yeah, we'll put this on. And I think about that back now, and I'm like, if she had said something in that moment to say like, I don't think we can do that, my approach to Nashville probably would have changed dramatically. And it's so important because I've heard the phrases like, Black people don't like country music. I've heard that spoken by people that I know and respect. And it's like, it's important to have somebody there so that it's not, we don't have to say like, well, that doesn't work. It's like, well, 1% of all artists work. So like, maybe we just need to see it more and find the person that breaks through. I mean, Chaperone is a great example. Like, I think a lot of people would have said what she's doing isn't going to work. I mean, her main look is camo and she's like mostly a pop artist. And it's like, I could see a lot of people saying, I don't think this is going to work. And it didn't just work. She's probably one of the highest consumed artists of all time right now. So it's like the line between crazy and obvious. It's so small. It just takes one person doing it.
One person.
I mean, Despacito. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Won best song, and it was a Spanish song, and it's like nobody thought that was ever gonna happen. And then once that happened, all of a sudden I got calls like, "Hey, can you translate this country song to Spanish and stuff?" Tim McGraw's all of a sudden putting out a song in Spanish, and it takes one person to do it, and then everybody follows.
Person to do it. That's.
I mean,
so
nobody
true.
was signing big bearded country boys until Luke Combs.
Mm-hmm.
No one was doing it.
And now
it was
wants
a
to find
pretty
another
boy
one.
6-pack job. And then Luke Combs said, like,
with
this
some
is
bro country.
Yeah, and that was what the trend was, and it took him to, and then there was a bunch of like, I don't want to say copycats, but a lot of people that followed him and were able to be themselves instead of trying to, I don't know, be or look like something else. And those things matter, you know. I mean, we need people, all bodies, all sizes, because it lets us accept ourselves, and that's what art is supposed to do. And when it doesn't do that, that's when you're veering off that authenticity plane, you know.
And I believe that all art, like you're saying, it is like from a higher calling. Like we are given these gifts. Everyone has a gift. Not everyone is an entertainer. Not everyone is an artist, but like everyone has a gift. And when you are an artist or when you're given the voice, the gift of song or the gift of like music and being able to write or whatever, it's like, that's your God-given talent. That's your gift that's your spiritual gift. And it's like, nobody can tell you how that's supposed to be presented, you know, because you are the only author of your soul who knows what you're being called to do. Because it literally, don't you feel like a gift like calls you? Like you can't outrun it. Like you're singing, like you probably can't like avoid it. It's calling to you all the time. Like your voice is like saying, I need to sing, I need to write. Like if you're not naturally called to do that, you probably wouldn't pursue it, you know?
Yeah, I think you're just right on the money with that. Like it's like one of my favorite books I read is called The Art of Asking, and it was written by a musician that like kind of explains like if you're going to ask for somebody to do something, do it from a place of like, I love this art and I want it to see the world. Not like, I'm so sorry to ask this, but can you be like, come from it from why you're excited about it. And it's such a different thing to do as an artist, because as we're early on, we're like, we're just so scared to take up space. And it's like, no,
you try to fit in and mold yourself.
If you love what you're creating, lead with that. Even if they don't like it, just say, hey, I really like this. I think other people will like it. Will you do me the, like, I would appreciate it if you pre-saved this. Like when you're early on and you have to ask your friends to individually do it, you know? And something she says in that is like, the best nights are on stage are when like sometimes you'll feel like you're kind of pushing, trying to get the audience into you. And sometimes the audience is kind of lifting you up. And the best nights on stage is when you can't tell who's doing the taking, who's doing the giving. It's like this line gets totally blurred.
It's like you're breathing together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a community to do that, to really trust the people in front of you so that you don't feel like you have to jump up and down crazy. That's only when you entertain them. You know, I remember seeing that. It was Adele at the Royal Albert Hall. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's one of my favorite live shows I've ever watched. And there's one part where she just takes off her heels and she makes the band start over. And I'm just riveted. And I'm like, we're just there with her every step. And she doesn't, I mean, I love Pink, but she doesn't like go through the air on ribbons like I thought I had to, the way Pink did. That's the only way you can entertain people. She just stands there, she sings a song,
and just sings it from her heart.
And I could watch that over and over again. And it's like, it takes those nights and community building, and that's why we do all the work, is to have that moment where everybody's kind of synced and you feel like your shoulders drop and you're just there for the music.
Yes. But I do believe everybody who is this artist does it in their own way. Because like, I agree, like I'm never going to be an acrobat going through the crowd, but like Pink, that's how she feels called, you know, like her body is so strong and she loves to move in that way. And that's part of the way she expresses herself. Yeah. Whereas Adele, like she feels called. But it's like, that's the thing that I feel like is changing the music industry now. And I'm grateful for it, is that we are realizing the industry used to have such a grip on who the stars could be. But now with like social media and people coming out on their own and being able to like be their own like label in a way, put their own music out and be consumed and not have to have a suit to get them heard. It's like you really can truly be the artist that you are supposed to be, not trying to fit into a mold. Whereas there used to be only a limited number of spots and you had to look a certain way, be a certain way, or else people weren't going to give you a shot because it was all fear-based and trying to make you into something that they thought would work. Where now it's like, okay, people are being themselves, putting it out there, and we're letting the people realize like what they're drawn to. And like you find your people. You don't have to appeal to every single person in the world, but the people who connect with you can find you.
Yeah,
you know?
And somebody that owns 100% of their stuff is doing better. Like me, top 40 or even top 100 is making more money than somebody's in the top 5 if they haven't recouped yet. So it's like,
what's the trade-off?
Yeah. And the cool thing is brand partnerships are so much bigger now because we have access to creating our own communities, and then that becomes valuable brands. So like now I don't have to make all the money off touring if I could have a brand sponsor that's covering the bus or covering the trailer, you know, covering the hotels. And I always say hotels like that. Hotels. I don't know why I do that. My girlfriend, my fiance always makes fun of me. But yeah, it's definitely a different world.
Yeah. Have you liked it all?
Yeah, like the journey of being able to do all this. Yeah.
Have you liked this journey you've chosen? Because it's just a wild west out there.
I'm not gonna lie. Some days I have a lot of anxiety, and some days like I journal. One of my favorite things to do is the artist way. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So the artist way is this thing that a lot of like lifetime songwriters have talked about. If you have like any kind of like block in your writing, and basically you don't have to read the whole book, but it just tells you to do like these 2 things, and it's every day you journal 3 pages. And I never journaled before this. I thought it was super annoying because I was like, I want to write something good, and that takes time. This is like stream of consciousness. So if you start by saying, I hate this, just write that 10 times until you have another thought. Like, I really got to do laundry today. I got to go to the gym. I feel annoyed because I haven't gone to the gym this week. And you just write it all down. And the idea is it kind of siphons off that top layer of gibberish on your brain.
Just your mind.
And allows you to think of deep thoughts. Because once you like, and what I realized was as I did it, I was like, I'm kind of negative.
You saw your self-talk.
I just saw how much, I was like, it's almost always getting to the gym. I'm not doing enough for my career. And I'm not like doing enough, you know? And
so you saw a
finances.
trend.
I saw that those 3 things dominated almost all of my, what I would call like in between thoughts. So
Which consumes probably the majority of your mind.
Right. And I would say majority of people like finances and
career stress.
And career stress could be like 90% of your thoughts, but it's like, they're not helpful thoughts if you're just yelling at yourself, you know?
You're just beating yourself down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're keeping your energy a little bit negative instead of like, because I really believe in like energy and vibration. And so like when you're in your head, I did not even know my self-talk. I was not even aware of self-talk until my late 30s.
I think as women too, it's the negativity I think is even worse in our culture.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of guys like really fret about what they're going to look like in a bathing suit, you know? Like I don't see them. I mean, I'm sure they do, and I don't want to disqualify that, but I think in women, I know more women with eating disorders than I do men.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say solid half of my friends at some point have had an eating disorder. And it's like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. And that comes from that spiral that we don't feel like we can share with people because it doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of sits in a circle.
Yeah.
And until you reorganize that belief, that's going to run your life unconsciously, you know?
Because all it is basically saying, I am not worthy. And I am not worthy because I don't have my finances right. Because my body is not right. I don't have my career where I'm supposed to be. I am not doing enough, so I am not worthy. And that's what I hired a life coach when I was 38 years old because I was like, I've got to figure out why the fuck I feel this way because I know I'm worthy. I know that I deserve like wonderful things. And like, why is my self-talk so negative and like so
it's really scary when you start to see it because I did not know I was that negative, really.
I think so many people are not aware of their self-talk because they're outwardly they're doing all these things to improve themselves, but inwardly they're beating themselves up.
So what did you do to kind of help get yourself out of that spiral?
Well, it started when I had my daughter because I was like, when she was born.
It's also like, isn't that a thing? Like right after you have a baby, it's
like an awakening.
Postpartum, yeah.
Postpartum, I was like an emotional wreck, but then I was also like, no, I started my journey to like clearing this up. I was like, I am going to fix this because I was like, I cannot. My number one thing is I want her to feel proud and confident of herself. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to teach that to her honestly. And if I can't feel that way about myself, then like, how will I ever be able to teach her that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I went on a massive journey to figure out what is my core reason for why I don't think I'm worthy.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what was the final click. I finally realized I was a high functioning codependent, which meant I was just trying to make every single person in the world love me so that I could feel validated that I was worthy because everyone liked me.
I think a lot of artists would relate to that.
And if everyone likes me, then I have value.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just work my ass off to make sure everyone thought I was great. And then
but you never really asked yourself what you like or what you want or what makes you happy and joyful.
I would just read the room and like whoever I was with, I would figure I'm so good at like reading people and understanding what they need. And like I'm so empathetic that I can feel people's energy. I'm like, oh, I just need to give them this version of me to make them happy so they can love me. And then ultimately, when I had a daughter, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not draining myself for other people. And so I kind of just started a deeper journey. And now I feel like I'm like, do I even have friends anymore? I used to have so many friends. And now I'm like, do I even have any friends?
That's
because
so
I don't try to make people love me anymore. It's like, you're either, like you said, you either like, they kind of fade off and you're like,
and
bye.
Family.
Or they're like your core family. And at this point, I'm like, to make good friends, it takes years.
And it's hard as an adult.
Yeah.
Especially if you moved from the city you grew up in.
Yes.
Like, it's really difficult. That kind of perfectly goes into the second part of Artist Way, which is my favorite part. It's once a week, you have to do one thing by yourself. And it has to be something that just like, you genuinely just like something in your heart draws to it. So like, if you go to the dollar store and picking out 5 things, which I used to love to do as I was a kid, because there's one right next to my gym, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the dollar. That's gonna be my artist way today. And I went over there and I bought these little things. And during that trip, there was a little like kid plane that you could put together. And I was like, that'll be fun. And I put it together. And then I was like, man, I always really wanted to fly. And I've been a mechanic most of my life. Like, that's what was always my side job. And I ended up taking my first flight lesson, meeting the guy who maintains all the planes. And now in my free time, that brings me so much joy. We actually do go and help out at the shop that's in Springfield. And I also help with plane recovery. So single engine planes that go down, and I get to operate heavy equipment. And I feel like a little kid every single time I do any of those things.
So what is that called in the artist way? That second part?
It's just an artist date.
Like doing something.
They call it an artist date. So like anything that you're like, you know what I'd really love to do today? I'd love to go outside and shoot the basketball in my front yard for like 10 minutes. And it doesn't have to be. And sometimes like I went to a Morgan Wade concert by myself that I really loved at the Ryman. I just sat there and enjoyed the entire thing. And going to a movie by yourself, the only rule is it's by yourself, because like you said, it's so easy to be like, well, okay, if you don't want to do that, I won't do it. And the whole idea is discovering what actually charges your joy,
what you love.
Yeah.
And you're doing it
and
just
as a
because
mom,
you
how
love
many
it.
times have you asked yourself that question?
Well, I found mine, and it's hot yoga. And so like
Oh,
that's
I love
why
it.
I have to go to hot yoga. Like if I don't,
That's why you stopped having friends. They're like, we
Probably.
can't hang out with you.
I go to hot yoga though, but I will just cry because I will like go through my whole life. Like I kind of do it as like an audit for myself. I'll go like a few times a week, and like I just kind of like wherever. If the last time I went to yoga, like all the life that happened in between, I'll just kind of go through my whole life, and I'll figure out what kind of is the sticky areas, what kind of made me feel weird, where were things great. Sometimes I'll deep dive into someone like close to me, like a family member or a close friend, and I'll like go back in my mind to the beginning of their life in childhood, and I'll try to like figure out what made them the way they were, and like try to understand them. It's just like where I do this like deep analyzing of my life and all those around me.
While you're just sweating everything out of your body.
Sweating everything out, and like my body's talking to me, and it's telling me where it's stiff and where it needs to stretch.
I gotta try this.
It is healed.
Where do you go?
I go to Core Power.
Shout out Core Power.
Brentwood, shout out Core Power. But like I had a lot of miscarriages, and that is where I like grieved them and released them and like healed it, because like I was able just to like communicate with my body so much and like communicate with my spirit at the same time. And I mean, so I am all about the artist way, finding something for yourself just to connect with yourself, to free yourself, to release what's like inside of you that's like burdening you, to remind yourself that you are magical and like connected to something bigger, and just to feel that. You can't forget to feel the magic, even if you're in dark times, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, grief is like a pause button in a way.
Speaking of grief, I want to talk about your song, Mars.
Yeah, Red Dirt on Mars.
Because that's about grief.
It is, yeah. And it's kind of like this feeling of wanting to be in a place that's familiar, but like also wanting to be so far away from everything and be in your bubble. And it's like this weird dichotomy that we have as humans, that like when we experience something so intense that we can't really talk about, it's like I feel like it almost splits your body. Like half of you is here, the other half is dissociated somewhere else. And like the idea is like maybe if you get far enough away,
it'll go away.
You can just like process. You just want everything just, and it's like, it was really beautiful writing it in the room, because we all were sharing stories, and it just kind of all came out. And it's amazing to see people putting their own stories into it that are like, it makes us feel like we kind of, that's the beauty of writing. When you really write something well, the details don't matter. It's the feeling, just freaking, it just connects, and it makes me feel less alone, as well as everybody in that room less alone, to know so many people have connected with that song.
So Red Dirt on Mars, you would think it's kind of like a heartbreak song. Why is it about grief?
So it's the whole song doesn't really talk necessarily about the person as much as the way you feel because that person's not there anymore. So like I wouldn't call it a heartbreak song, because you're not really talking about how much you miss the relationship. It's more that you're alone, and that thing you had you can't replace, and you lost something. And so the whole song is just about losing something that you'll never get back. It's not about trying to get it back. It's not about being better tomorrow. It's not about getting back on the horse or drinking. I have those songs too, but this is a song I think a lot of times early on in my life, I always wanted to wrap songs up in a bow. Like I had a hard time and this is how I dealt with it. And now I'm over it.
And now we've got our happy ending, or I've moved on, or giving you the middle finger and I don't care.
Yeah.
But this is like, I am stuck in the pain, and this pain will always be here.
And it's almost an acceptance of the pain. And that's where I think it's such an important part of grief, to just be like, this is where I am right now. Because the more you're like, it's this shame spiral, man, of like, I should be over this now, or I should be doing more today. That shame spiral is so dangerous, especially when you're experiencing a lot of pain. And I think like when you allow yourself and forgive yourself for feeling the way you feel, wow, that's so powerful. At least it was for me. You know?
So what is grief to you?
Grief to me is, this is an Ed Sheeran song that I love. That's like, a heart that's been broke is a heart that's been loved. And it's like, I love that quote so much, because it's like, nothing in this world is anything we can, like anything good is something we can grip.
Can't hold it tightly forever.
I remember I did a songwriting camp with these little kids once. My mom used to work for elementary school. And we would talk about our feelings. And I noticed that every negative feeling, I learned this from these little kids, every negative feeling happened yesterday or tomorrow. All the good feelings happen now, but we can't save them for tomorrow, and we can't throw them back to yesterday. So it's like, if all the good feelings happen right now, why am I spending all my time in yesterday and tomorrow? You know,
it's so hard not to, and that's why we have depression and anxiety.
Because grief forces us into yesterday, because we don't want to let go, and we're worried if we let go, that thing we had will change into something else, or we'll forget it, and it's so scary. But sometimes you just gotta like let the river flow, you know?
Oh, being a human is so hard.
It is, we're getting real.
I'm feeling you, Angie. Being a human is so hard. Half the time I wake up, I'm like, what in the world is happening?
This is moving rock in the middle of space.
I just feel like you have to keep running. Like you can
I'm drinking green juice because it's supposed to be good for me. Why am I like?
I know.
It just all becomes so ridiculous.
You have to keep going, and you have to stay motivated, and you have to work on your self-talk, and you have to work on your spirituality, and you have to work on your inner voice, and you have to work on your gift.
And then you have a bad day, and you're like, oh, it's all for nothing, and I'm not even balanced right now.
I know. And then like you said earlier, it's like, if you had, being an artist too, if you had if you were sure that if you just kept doing this, you will reach the goal of making your millions and having your success, wouldn't it be easy? But you're doing it all, and it still could end in nothing.
Wake up at night and be like, am I doing the right thing? I think that's the hardest part of being an entrepreneur too, is like people think entrepreneur is like staying up late and getting everything done. And it's like, no, it's the fact that every day you choose what you have to do. And not only do you have to choose it, but you have to believe that that's exactly what you have to do
blindly
to get there. Yeah.
Blindly. You're believing because something inside of you tells you that it could work, and that's what your guiding light inside of you says to go for, but you have no proof.
Yeah.
You have no roadmap, and you have no idea
if
it will work out.
In music, it's like everybody's like, well, you just have to do it like this. And my favorite part is like, I always quote this. It's like, hey, man, I just need you to be yourself. Oh, wait, but don't do that. Like, it's like always like the executive thing. Yeah. It's like, and it doesn't matter unless you're the artist, you will do that because that's your job. Like, you're going to be like, just be yourself, just be yourself. Oh, maybe don't do that, you know? And it's your job. But also as artists, it's maddening. It's maddening because you go and do the risk and you do like what they say. And like,
and then it ruins everything.
Yeah. I've had people say like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. And it's like, oh yeah, you couldn't tell me that while I was doing it. Like, what? So it's like, that's I think part of the whole
but it ultimately
frustration side of it.
I feel like ultimately as an artist, after you've gone through the ringer long enough, like kind of what we were talking about in the beginning, you get to the point where you realize you finally know who you are. You finally know you've tried things that you didn't like, that didn't feel authentic. You've tried things that did. You've done the whole gamut. And finally you get to a point, if you really are going to hang in there as an artist and like do this because this is what you're born to do, you finally commit to like, I'm doing it my way.
Well, you learn the cross that you're willing to die on.
And I feel like that is this album that you just put out.
Yeah. So like the way I thought of it.
It's called like, Angie K. Might as well be just like a statement of who you are.
If somebody came and said, don't put out Red Dirt on Mars, I don't think it's going to be any good.
Red Dirt on Mars.
In my mind, I'm like, yeah, like if somebody told me that, I know that I'm like, you could be right. But if you were right, I would be more upset with myself for not trying it than I would if it tried and failed.
And
like,
how do they know?
I can hang my head on that song failing or you know, whatever, just not doing well or whatever.
But how does anyone know?
No, they don't. But like people's job is
to tell
you is to tell you what they think. So to me, I'm like, when, you know, like I said, I got asked to change the pronoun to that song. I was like, I'd rather make 10 good friends and people that come to my shows till I'm 60 because of that song, the way that it's written, than make a million fans and have people screaming the lyrics of people that I'm afraid if they knew who I was, that I would be dropped by them. But that takes age. And so that's why I have so much empathy for, like, Avriana is so young. You know what I'm talking about? She's this young, sweet blonde girl that has these such intense emotional songs. And I like, she's so young. She's like in her teens when she got discovered by David Fanning, who's also Parmalee's manager. And I want to say she's probably above that now, but it's like, couldn't even drink alcohol and has all this fame. And I'm like, she handles it so well. And I'm like, man, I would have been a mess. I would have been a mess. Absolutely.
Me too. I don't feel like my head got on straight until I turned like 40, honestly. And it's still just now leveling out. Yeah. It's taken me half my life. Like these kids who are young, I'm like, how? God bless you, watch over you, keep you safe because you are entering such a blender.
I mean, imagine if we had to go to high school with, we were probably the last generation that like actually got a little bit of both, you know? We got like real childhood, not real childhood.
But before like, everything was documented.
Before we were able to compare ourselves to people all over the world.
All the time. All over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about Angie K, this album, why this is so important to you and like what this album means to you.
Yeah, this record, I did it with Stephanie Smith, who was out in the 90s, if you can believe it. She wrote It's Your Love, Just Does Something to Me, by herself, by the way. But she's a world-class songwriter, and I remember the first meeting I had with her, I had hundreds and hundreds of songs I sent her, and she was like, I feel like you play here in this one column, and I feel like you live here in this other column. And she listed the songs in the columns. And I was like, yeah, I want to write the record I want to live in. Like, I want to build that house. And when I got dropped by Keith, it felt like I went to social media and I did very well there. Because I was like,
really? So you were like popping off.
Yeah. And
why do you think that was?
I'm a people person.
You're
so
just
like
being
to me,
honest.
I'm like, I know what I would want to watch and I know how to make that. So I did it. And I can write anything. Like, not be like cocky, but like I can sit in a room and be like, I'm gonna write this really catchy kind of popish country song, even though that wasn't necessarily me. I'm like, oh, but this is sick, this is cool, I'm gonna do it. And I enjoy still writing different genres. I just do that for different people now instead of for myself. And I would write these songs that did really well and I enjoyed them, but weren't necessarily something I was thinking about, is this the message I want to put in the world, is this my purpose? And when you don't have the purpose behind your music, like I was saying before, then when it doesn't work, you feel like you gave a piece of your soul a little bit.
It's kind of like a one-night stand.
And it didn't work. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then it's like, but.
And it didn't work. And then you're like, man, was it even worth it at all? I don't know.
So it's like finding that joy. And it's like, if somebody connected with this song, it would give me more joy.
Because
than
it's
if somebody
actually
connected with
you.
this song. Like I would need 100 people to connect with this song for it to even feel like one person connecting to this song.
And so every song on Angie K is that for you.
Yeah, and there's some slow ass song. I mean, there's a song called "Death of Me" on this album.
I know.
Yeah,
talk about that one.
That one is like, it's really kind of about that crossroads in your relationship where you're just like, it doesn't matter if you've been in a relationship, married forever, or like in a long relationship. At some point, you've been to this place where you have to decide: am I going to stay or am I going to go? And it is
a death.
And it feels like the word that was spoken in the writing room that day was, I know I'll never leave. And I was like, what a space to be in. And how many people are in that space that don't talk about it, don't have people to talk about, because you don't want to talk bad about your partner. A lot of people keep that so private and close to themselves. And we're talking like, I've heard people reach out to me that were like, about abusive situations, they have such a hard time leaving because that person is a good person, but they're doing bad things. And it's like, that's what that song's about. It's that being in that crossroads and accepting, like I said, we're throwing the bow away for this record. So it's like,
good.
It's accepting the fact
that the bows out of here. Kick him out. I'm done with some bows.
It's like, look, I know that this is killing me, but I can't leave this person.
So I'm going to die.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm accepting that like, this could be the death of me and this is just how I'm going to end. And it's like, so
you're
intense.
not, like you said, you're not trying to wrap it up with a bow. You're like having some of the real life stories that don't end in a fairy tale.
Yeah, and if I'm being really honest, I think a big place that I wrote this song out of was this industry, because it was getting dropped was so hard emotionally. Like, and I'm sure you've been through it because I know your husband has been through those highs and lows too.
Oh yeah. And every day we're like, why are we doing this industry?
Yeah, you know, but I heard
you can't leave
Tedder
it
in a podcast say that he thinks about quitting the music industry.
How can you not?
One of the biggest producer songwriters in the world, and that felt so validating because it's like, the thing is we don't just go in and we do our little cubicle of work and leave. It's like I people read my journal entries.
Oh,
Like, and they say, this sucks.
Right.
You know? So it's like, that is really hard. And it's even harder when you realize, like I said, like no one can earn it. It's all just a little bit of luck. And I mean, there's so many people that I think are more talented than I'll ever be. That their music just, it's not right place, right time, you know? Brittany Spencer, I think, should be one of the biggest artists of all time. And
but
it's
you know
just,
what?
yeah.
I think everyone will get their day.
I
I
believe that.
really do. And I was Rod Essig, who used to be
If
the
it's
head.
right for you, if it's meant for you, and
If you're
you,
walking
and you
your
work on your own
truth-
energy, I believe you will find what's meant for you.
Agreed. If you Rod Essig, who was the head of CAA,
But that's why we're still here.
yes, because
our belief is still there.
and we keep clearing out the things that aren't real.
That's right.
Because if you get piled up with things that aren't real and you try to make that your identity, and then you try to build a career on that, it's going to kill you. And I think that
It has killed people.
It will kill you.
Yeah.
It will kill you if you've built your whole career off of trying to be what everyone says you can be, or like trying to make yourself into this image that's not real.
Yeah.
Even if you do get success, like you're talking about, if you would have changed the lyrics to the pronouns, if you would have had success, you would be eaten up inside every night because that's not what you want to sing. It's not real to you, and you don't want it just for the fame. Like you want all the glory, but like it's not worth it just for the fame, because the fame is so fleeting. And if you're going to have that moment and it's not true to you, then I think it will kill you. And so like ultimately, Rod Essig, head of CAA, said this. He's like, everyone who is truly like a true artist, he told me this a long time ago. He said they will make it, they will have their day in some form or fashion eventually. Because if you're a true artist and you don't quit and you keep clearing out the garbage that keeps getting put on you and you keep staying true, eventually you're gonna resonate and you're gonna connect. Like you have to. It has to be like some sort of scientific law.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Like, you know, which it basically says like if you're in the same, this is the verbiage they use, like if you're in the same vibration as the things that you want, it will happen.
You'll bump into it eventually.
And I'll tell you, this past year has felt like walking around and just hitting my head on opportunities.
Well,
it has felt the easiest, besides of occasional anxiety attacks. When I'm truly in a good place, things just flow in ways like I like the anxiety attacks are more from not working as hard. Like I have, like I said, that chip on my shoulder of like, I'm going to work harder than everyone. That's why I'm going to earn it. And that's kind of our parents' culture. It's like you earn everything and earning and earning and earning. And it's like when you live in that world, it's very difficult to be community driven because you don't feel like anyone else has earned it because you're working harder. So it's like, yeah, I think that once I started pulling back and letting go the grip of the steering wheel and like enjoying the moments, and I'd made better decisions. It's kind of like
and you're doing it for love. Like,
yeah, and
the love of it.
I tell kids all the time when I do the songwriting workshops, I'm like, the reason art is important is because when you don't take a break from your mind, all the problems feel this close. And you can't navigate when you have a wall in front of you. But when you're able to step back and see what it looks like, you can move through that maze because you're above it instead of in it. And like, that's what I say art does. And the problem is our art has suddenly become combined with our industry. So like we're using both sides of our brain. So like that's why sometimes I'll set up rights and be like, look, this is a song I don't want to cut. This is a song I just want to write. And sometimes that's where Red Dirt on Mars comes from. That's where Death of Me comes from. And turns out that's exactly what I needed to be writing all along.
I love that. The whole point of this is really just getting back to the truth of who we are, isn't it? And being brave enough and bold enough and aware enough to commit to it.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have to have enough
And brave
wisdom
enough.
and brave enough. You have to have lived enough. You have to be brave enough. Like you have to go through some stuff to even know who it is that you want to be.
Yeah.
Because like life just puts so much on us. We're so layered up. I feel like it's like, I don't know if you ever saw that Friends episode where like Joey had on like 1 million pieces of clothing. And I feel like that's life. It's just like sometimes you're just layered up with like sweaters and jackets and clothes, and it's all people's shit that's not yours, and it's life that's just put stuff on you, and it's circumstances that you don't really need to carry around or make your identity, but yet they're on us and we don't even realize that they're on us. And so it's like being an artist, ultimately I feel like it's just stripping all that off and getting to the core of like, who am I? What am I trying to say? And then putting it out there to the world so other people can remember who they are as well.
And taking our lived experiences and making people that where we felt alone, they feel connected. So like a good example is like you've been through so much as a mother, like in ways I would never be able to understand, that if you saw a woman struggle somewhere in a way that you remembered struggling and nobody helped you, you would immediately be like, hey, I get what you're going through. It's okay. And they might start crying or like, you know, those moments.
To know you're not alone.
You just left the grocery store, wherever you were, feeling like, a little more purpose is in your
Mhm.
life, and the world isn't as scary of a place because you're able to give something that you weren't able to get. You know, and it's
Yes.
like that's what art is. It's about taking our lived experiences, and like that Death in Me song was so intense, and then people saying they didn't have anyone to talk to about that, and like hearing those words suddenly soothed them. And it's like maybe that pain can be this beautiful thing, and that's what art does. It turns that pain into something beautiful that makes us feel more together. I mean, think about all the things that you've been through and the way you're able to be there for people in ways you couldn't before you went through those things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And they're not all in
And
vain.
the alternative of that is us being very bitter people. So, you know, it's like
fine line.
It is.
It's a very fine line. That's why all people who are creatives feel a little schizophrenic.
That's right.
It's like, I think I'm actually insane, but I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, something I've done with my manager is I'm like, hey, if I start to feel like kind of frantic or like even a little spicy, just use the word unbalanced.
Unbalanced?
And then I get like this trigger in my brain. I'm like, okay, I'm not responding from a place that I need to be responding from, and I could take a break. And I'm like, okay.
I love that you're
Yeah.
so aware of your mental health. That's so amazing, Angie.
Yeah, well, we got to be.
You have to be.
When you've done a lot of things, felt a lot of things get in the way sometimes. You got to navigate them.
I think it's the most important thing anyone can do for their career.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're just sitting here talking. We're almost at an hour and a half. So, Angie, I'm going to wrap up, even though I just love chatting with you.
That
I think
flew by.
Flew by.
Love it.
I want to make sure we covered everything. So, Angie K is out.
Mm-hmm.
Any touring coming up that people need to know about? What do people need? Give us all the details of how to like follow along with you, stay connected with you, like go to shows, hear music.
Yeah, I'm at official Angie K on everything. 2 Fs. I only say that because in Spanish it's 1 F, but
Two Fs.
official 2 Fs on official. Oficial in Spanish is 1 F.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, official Angie K on all platforms, and officialangiek.com is my website. And I got Country Thunders coming up, Tortuga, Nebraska Land Days. We're doing a bunch of festivals this summer, and I'd love to see you guys.
And then everyone just go get your music online.
Yes, please.
It's
I
called
need
Angie
it.
K.
I got a wedding to pay for.
When is the wedding?
I think we're going to do it in September.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Where?
Make it happen. There's a really cool venue down in Normandy, Tennessee. It's like an hour and some change from here. And they let you stay. It's like a whole campground area, and you can stay there the day before and the day after.
Oh, heck
So
yeah.
like we can bring kind of, because Marissa's all for her friends are from California. So we wanted like a proper country wedding. So that's the plan.
Well, congratulations on all your abundance and your success and just stepping into your true like humanness, like who you really are with this music, with your marriage coming up, with just like the artist that you are, the person that you are. Congratulations on just being a badass, Angie.
Well, man, I want to come back tomorrow. This is pretty great.
I mean, the way
I don't
we're
think my head's
talking,
gonna fit on the way out. But
we could just chat for days.
we could.
And I want to wrap up by saying your voice is freaking insane.
Oh wow, thank
You
you.
have such a cool voice. Like it is a unique voice because like when you start, it's like, oh, that's a cool voice. And then you get into like the notes with the rasp and like your sound. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never heard another voice like it. Literally.
Well, thank you. I actually was really bad at like choir and stuff. I never got solos because my voice is so low. They actually had me as tenor sometimes because we didn't have enough voice. So like I appreciate you saying that because you know sometimes you're just in the wrong place and you're actually
Your voice is cool as shit. It is so unique. Like it is such a cool voice.
Thank you.
It is
you.
awesome. And you got a range and it's just like, man.
And you have a lot of talented friends, so I appreciate you saying that.
You have like I've never heard a voice like yours. I'm like, man, Angie, your voice is awesome.
Thank you.
It is so awesome. I always wrap up with leave your light. It's open-ended. What do you want people to know? Drop some inspiration.
Leave your light. I would say close your eyes and think of something silly that you wanted to do and do it this week. And it doesn't matter if it takes 10 minutes or it's a concert or something, but you'd be shocked at how much that helps your mental health. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to thank you so much for joining me. This might be 2 episodes. I'm going to have us do a little teaser that this could be 2 episodes since we're at an hour and a half almost, Angie. I freaking love it so much. Thank you so much for joining. And I can't wait to watch you out there on the road, tearing it up and just watching your life and seeing all your good glory happen because it's amazing to see.
Well,
You're
this
awesome.
is probably the most in-depth interview I've ever done. This is gonna great. Now, when anybody asks, like, what's your whole story? I'm like, I'm gonna send
Right
them
here.
this podcast.
You know, that's what I like to do. I want someone's entire story.
It really feels like I talked about things I haven't talked about in a lot of podcasts. So this is awesome.
I'm so happy because like sometimes I feel like, is this like, does everyone do these podcasts? Because like I'm just going through someone's life. But like my whole thing is I want to hear your whole life. I want to know how you got here.
You want to know why I cut my fingernail?
I did not have any idea that's why you cut your fingernails, but I am glad to know. And way to keep it trim.
It's great. Anytime.
Angie, thank you so much. This was
Thank
awesome.
you.